Whew, man, the holidays, they just really sneak up on you, don't they? No, not really. I knew this was coming, but I totally mismanaged it. I threw away all of my progression, all of my goodwill that I built up with all of you to hang out with some friends and family. So, sue me, I'm sorry. I'm a little late on my Nosferatu list, but I will still put that out this coming Sunday. But because I had a little bit of extra time, I figured the only way I could make it up to you guys is to give you a list I know you've all been waiting for, and that is, of course, this one you're watching. Duh. Good evening, campers, dreamers, and babysitters, and welcome back to another recommendation list. Yes, on the channel, I've been doing some disturbing films I will never watch again lists over the last few months here, and they've been doing really well. I really appreciate all the support you guys have given to those videos. They've really shot this channel up into the stratosphere, and I appreciate it greatly. But one comment was flying around a lot in the comment section, and that was, of course, what are some disturbing movies that you would rewatch? What are some disturbing movies that you love? And believe it or not, I do have a list of disturbing films that I love. There's quite a few, actually, that I think are really awesome, and this is just 5 of them. So I'm excited to talk about them. Again, I'm trying to kind of keep this list a little bit more varied, a little bit more personal. So if this is something where it's like you see one of my picks and you're like, this isn't disturbing, or I wouldn't consider this disturbing, or this isn't as disturbing as this, understand, guys. I know. I get it. I'm not going to keep doing the same old song and dance here, but just know, I get it. This is just my personal list, how I feel about them, and I hope if you're interested in that, you'll stick around and watch the video. So with that, let's not delay things any further, but I do have to say, if you are new here and you're just discovering the channel, hey, how's it going? I appreciate you stopping by, and if you like this content, if you love this video, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit that like button to help boost us up in the algorithm, as well as leave a comment, let me know what you think of some of these disturbing picks, as well as if you think that I deserve it, please hit that subscribe button. It really means a lot. Kicking things off at my number 5, we have 2016's Nocturnal Animals. A wealthy art gallery owner is haunted by her ex-husband's novel, a violent thriller she interprets as a symbolic revenge tale. 2016's Nocturnal Animals. Yes, this is one that I kind of snuck in at the last minute here. I had another pick, but I thought I was, well, I guess pretty surprised, I should say, when I found this popping up on a couple people's lists on Letterboxd of just disturbing films. And I kind of sat back and said, this is like kind of a messed up movie, but I don't necessarily know if I could classify it as disturbing. It's definitely more of a drama thriller. So I did the only logical thing and I rewatched this movie. And I've seen this movie a dozen times, but kind of sticking to it with that lens, I can see why this film will get under some people's skin. And I think that's going to be kind of the best way to kick this list off, is because I can understand for some people why some of these movies are disturbing, but this one to me is just something that is so intoxicating, so wonderfully written and presented and pieced together just as a film and from a performance standpoint, that I just find myself coming back and needing to get more and more. Now, there's definitely some tough subject matter in here. I think that Tom Ford definitely is stepping it up a lot from his first feature, A Single Man, where that's more of a quiet drama. This one, it's a bit more cutthroat. It is pretty horrific. It involves a family, Jake Gyllenhaal, his wife, and his daughter, and they unfortunately come across Aaron Taylor Johnson and a couple of his buddies while out in the desert driving at night, and it gets pretty rough. And the implication and the follow-up that comes after it is also pretty grounded, pretty rough, pretty tough to watch. You don't see anything too explicit. Now, you guys know, if you've been watching me for any amount of time, essay and films is very much something that I have a hard time digesting, sitting with. It's just very much a tough subject for me. This is something where it's like, it's not so explicit. It's very much, kind of hinted at, and a lot of things that you see only shades of. And I think it's done very tastefully here, but the sequence in which Jake Gyllenhaal and his family are just abducted and taken, it is some pretty gruesome stuff. And Aaron Taylor Johnson is the epitome of a scumbag in this movie, and he really rubs it into the wounds of Jake Gyllenhaal as they further cross paths. The thing about that too is that while this is going on in the book, this horrific scene on the road, there's some other revelations that are coming to light for the author of this story that our main character is reading. And it's also pretty harrowing. It's also pretty upsetting. So I really love the way this is structured. I think that this is a film that, even if it's not the most disturbing thing in the world to some people, I could see it getting under some other people's skin. But this is just a completely stacked movie as far as your cast goes. You have the likes of Amy Adams as the lead, as Susan, Jake Gyllenhaal as Tony, as I mentioned, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Michael fucking Shannon, guys. Michael Shannon is an actor I absolutely adore. He crushes it in this movie. He's not in it a whole lot, but he's amazing. And there's so many other familiar faces that pop up in this. I'll save those for you if you've never seen it, but Nocturnal Animals to me is just one of the best crime psychological thrillers I've seen in so long. It's certainly something I don't mind revisiting. And yeah, I guess after sitting down and watching it under some new light, I could see why this would be disturbing to some of you. Moving on to my number 4 pick with 2018's The House That Jack Built. In 5 episodes, failed architect and vicious sociopath Jack recounts his elaborately orchestrated murders, each as he views them, a towering work of art that defines his life's work as a serial killer in the Pacific Northwest. Depending on how long you've been watching the channel or how many of my older videos you've seen, you may have watched my 5 films you should watch before you see Longlegs, which was kind of one of our first bigger videos to pop off back in July. That was a list that also included The House That Jack Built, but I'm putting it back on here because now I get to talk about it in a little bit of a different context than what I discussed in that video. And if I'm being completely honest with myself, this is definitely one of the most disturbing films that is just blatantly disturbing that I just absolutely adore. And I think primarily where that comes from is just not only the fact that we are really stepping in deep with a character that is so damaged, so psychologically, just manipulatively, just fucked to like all heaven. Like this character of Jack, played by Matt Dillon, is absolutely he makes Patrick Bateman look like a little tiny guppy compared to what he does in this film. And I mean, it's something that I just really find fascinating when you get down to the psyche of what makes Jack tick. Now, the other big reason that I want to kind of praise this movie is because this is a Lars von Trier film. And for those of you who know me, Lars von Trier is a director that, although I respect a lot of his work, I do find him a bit grating, and I find him a bit egotistical, especially in some of his, more recent work, which is funny because this is only a couple projects back for him. And there are a couple of moments where, yes, his ego does peak, but I don't think it completely ruins the film for me here. Because again, the performance by Matt Dillon, that's really the whole thing for me here, guys. Like, I really love the performance Matt Dillon gives, and the 5 segments or episodes that we get to see with Jack here are so fascinating, because you see him from, like, the start of when he really lets himself off the chain and starts killing people, and all the mistakes he makes and kind of the dark humor that's there. And then you also see when he's a bit more confident, a bit more cold and callous, and where that goes. And you're just really diving really, really deep into the killer's mind in this film. And I just absolutely adore it. There's so much beautiful cinematography, as, Lars von Trier is known to have. But there is also a lot of really grim and dark moments. Like, this movie does not shy away from showing you shit. But overall, I think that this movie is endlessly rewatchable for me. Now, it's not something that I can just throw on willy-nilly. No, I have to be in the right mindset. And particularly when I'm in that mindset, it comes to writing serial killer-esque characters, or characters that have a lot of darkness in them. I tend to go back to Jack because I think that it's just such a triumph to make a character that is so despicable, so evil. We know this person is truly the worst person alive, yet we're still so captivated by him and at times kind of rooting for him. It's sick, it's twisted, I absolutely love it, and I could not go without mentioning The House That Jack Built as far as disturbing films I love. Taking my number 3 spot, we have 2018's Climax. French dancers gather in a remote, empty school building to rehearse on a wintry night. The all-night celebration morphs into a hallucinogenic nightmare when they all learn their sangria is laced with LSD. Having these people all unknowingly ingest LSD of all things, while just kind of being in this very competitive dancer space, this is really a brilliant idea for a very chaotic film, and the madman who brings it to us is Gaspar Noé, who you guys will know from Enter the Void. That's also a very disturbing, excellent movie, but Climax really takes the cake for me here. I remember sitting down to watch this movie, partaking in just a little bit of the devil's lettuce beforehand, and just being completely transported and on the edge of my seat while watching this thing. This movie is liable to give the weaker stomached viewers a heart attack, because this thing is really nonstop. And the thing that I really appreciate that Gaspar Noé does with this is just taking the simulated one take approach to this in many of the shots. I wouldn't necessarily say it's one take, but it's longer shots that kind of linger, and just kind of giving you that kind of over the shoulder look at this nightmare that's unfolding. And this is certainly something that you get a lot deeper with the characters than I think you anticipate when you walk into it, and that only adds to the disturbing factor, because you kind of get the sense for who is like with it, who's a part of the group, who likes these people, and who really doesn't, who's very competitive, who's very dangerous to be around. And once you kind of take the brakes off with them all being high on LSD, it goes absolutely bonkers insane. Yeah, I think that this movie is seriously one of my favorites to sit down and show to people, because it is such a journey. It's such an adventure that it's a nightmare. It's literally watching a living nightmare unfold, but it's so endlessly rewatchable for me, because again, Gaspar Noé has a way of just moving the camera, moving the story along, feeding us information, all at this breakneck pace where so much happens, and the movie's only an hour and a half, but so much happens within that hour and a half that it could feel in the best way like you've been here for eons, because so much has gone on, so many things have unfolded, and it's just a really fun, disturbing movie. Like, I can't describe it any other way. It's something that I am very, very much like entranced by when I put this film on. And I think that if you've never seen it, it's certainly worth sitting down and experiencing at least once. Now, are you going to get the same experience as me? Some of you will, some of you won't, but I think that whether, you have the added advantage of, partaking in a little bit of the devil's lettuce or seeing the Stone Cold Sober, I've done both. It's seriously a trip that is worth taking if you like intense thrill rides that'll get your blood pumping. Stepping on into my number 2 spot with 1981's Possession. A woman starts exhibiting increasingly disturbing behavior after asking her husband for a divorce. Suspicions of infidelity soon give way to something much more sinister. Now, where Climax was this intense thrill ride that is equally disturbing, but in my opinion, kind of a fun watch, this is a very depressing watch, but I would be lying if I said that this movie doesn't absolutely nail the concept of taking a psychological thriller and supernatural horror and being the ideal blend of those two subgenres. Possession is so well done in its execution, because you are kind of on the edge of your seat through most of this film, not in the same way as Climax, but like with just your intrigue. You're always trying to figure out how much of this is in our characters' heads and how much of this is actually happening. And it's deeply engrossing in that. It's also, again, a very beautifully shot film. It really kind of takes the concept of a couple's relationship crumbling and divorce and just all of these really like big emotions that come with that, and then wrapping it in this supernatural, kind of horror take to it. And you will see so many people comparing films even just this past year with The Substance, and then of course we had The First Omen, which was very heavily compared to some scenes in Possession. You get a lot of those same feels here because the actors and actresses, they are put through a lot in this movie. There's a performance in, I believe it was a subway tunnel, if I'm remembering that correctly, but it is some really intense stuff. The actress really puts herself in the moment. Like you rarely ever see people commit this hard to projects like this, and it is again probably the most famous scene from this film. But even beyond that, we have the great Sam Neill in this one, and he's playing a very different character than I think we've ever seen him play before. This is no Alan Grant, everybody. No, this is a very, very broken person who's also not really the best person in mind. I think that this is more something you're going to need to explore on your own, so I can really only say that yes, this movie, it can be profoundly disturbing. If you are somebody who is going through a breakup, going through a divorce, really in a negative headspace, I wouldn't recommend putting it on. But if you're somebody who wants to see what I consider to be one of the most perfect blendings of two subgenres when it comes to psychological thriller and supernatural horror, this is certainly a must-see. I say this is one of the top 15 best horror films ever made. So certainly take some time and watch Possession. And finally, reaching my number one spot, we have 2003's Oldboy. After being kidnapped and imprisoned for 15 years, dae-su is released only to find that he must track down his captor in 5 days. Park Chan-wook. Get familiar with the name. It's going to be something we're going to be seeing on a few more of my future lists, because this guy is seriously one of the greatest action psychological thriller directors alive. And he's dabbled into a little bit of horror as well with a film called Thirst. Just fair warning, he's going to be talked about a lot. I love him to death. He's one of my favorite filmmakers alive. And Oldboy is certainly one of those films that has kind of cemented him in that place. Now, for some of you, if you are coming from seeing the 2013 remake, don't. That movie fucking sucks, and it completely misses the point and just everything that makes this film so memorable, so incredible. And I can only go into this going spoiler free. I cannot tell you all the spoilers about this, so if you have not seen Oldboy, just understand I'm not going to spoil anything for you. Just stop the video, watch it, and come back. Because this is a movie that I think you need to know, like, the less is more with this, in my opinion. This is something where you can't really sit into this knowing everything and get the same impact. Also, a lot of really great action in this. There's a one-take hallway scene that's very, very famous. Many people reference it. It's one of the greatest action scenes ever put to film. But beyond that, this movie is also very expertly crafted in the sense of blending, again, just like House of Jack built, dark comedy with psychological thriller kind of, material, I should say. Again, I'm trying to dance around some of this, so forgive me. But this is one of those movies that at times will have you laughing your ass off at just how dark and sick and twisted some of this is, but then will absolutely stun you and shock you with both beauty and just disturbing material. It's kind of a perfect blend. Like, I mean, it's really rare that we get movies that blend stuff like this so well when it comes to so many different facets. And I think that Oldboy absolutely nails everything it sets out to do. It makes a character who is, at first very downtrodden, very unlikable, likable, and then you follow this guy, you're in his corner, and then some other things happen and you're just like, holy shit, why I am so broken, I'm so angry, I'm so frustrated. And then also there will be some great action. Like the action in this movie is something I can't understate. If I could do like most brutal action movies, there's a few more that I'd probably put above this, but Oldboy would certainly have to be on that list because it's so well done. You'll never look at a hammer the same way again, I promise you. And then beyond that, there is one thing I do want to mention that is, I guess, not the biggest spoiler in the world. There is a sequence where you watch him eat a live octopus. So if you're not into animal abuse, violence, totally understandable. I'm not really into that either. But, it is something that they do culturally over there. So it is something that is in the film. It's a very intense scene. It's very harrowing. It's also kind of, sickly hilarious. So definitely be warned of that. But beyond that, guys, this movie is awesome. This is seriously one of the best, I gotta say, South Korean films I've ever seen. I really love this movie. I love to recommend it. It's something I at least watch once a year, right around the time that I get interested in rewatching like The Raid and The Raid 2. I usually throw on Oldboy because, again, you don't get action like this. You don't get storytelling necessarily like this. And, when people try to kind of blend this stuff, it's very, very rare that we get it done so well. And it is deeply disturbing. It's definitely a film that is going to make some people cringe and twist in their seats, but I say it's totally worth the price of admission, especially if this is something that you're unaware of, or maybe you've heard of it and you just haven't sat down to watch it, because Oldboy absolutely kicks ass and deserves my number one spot for at least the first 5 films that I love to rewatch, no matter how disturbing they are. And we've done it again, folks. That is the end of this recommendation list. Thank you so much for taking the time to let me tell you about some disturbing horror films, however I end up titling this. I'm still working the verbiage out, but by the time it's up, you've already seen it. Anyway, disturbing films I love to rewatch, disturbing films I love. These are just movies at the end of the day that I think are worth viewing and are worth your time if you're looking for something that's a little bit darker. And I certainly love all of these individually for all those reasons I mentioned in each pick. But beyond that, I just think that each of these movies encapsulate a lot of what I respect and what I'm interested in when it comes to being an aspiring filmmaker. So if you are an aspiring filmmaker, just a film fan, or somebody who just stumbled across this video and has some picks yourself, please put it down below. I'd love to start the conversation and hear what you guys think is super disturbing, but is also something you just can't get enough of. And I'd really love to go through those picks with you guys. And yes, if this video does well, if this boosts up in the algorithm and the YouTube gods give us, another banger here, I'll absolutely keep this series going. And yes, I put a poll out. This won that poll, but so many of you said, hey, so many nice things about those other options that I will be going through and putting those other options out, as well as, of course, following up with another round of disturbing films that I can't watch ever again, because there's quite a few I'm starting to learn. Like, as I go through and rekindle myself with some of these and even expose myself to some new ones thanks to you guys, there's a lot of ones I don't really think I should watch ever again, because, guys, there's some dark shit out there. There's some really messed up movies. Why did this have to be the series that got so popular on the channel? Why? I'm just kidding. I love doing it, like I said. Anyway, guys, that's going to wrap it up for us here. So until next time, I'm Dylan Newell. And remember, stay scared.
Do the hard shit, gonna do it live. Cause Splattercast kick it every day they live. Splattercast, gonna slash your ass. 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 Splattercast, gonna slash your ass.